Hey kids, what's up? Welcome to today's session. In today's session, we are going to deal with a beautiful poem. This is Shweta Roy, your English master teacher at Vedantu. And this poem is by Robert Frost. It's a beautiful poem by a romantic poet, Robert Frost. Before entering deep into the poem, let me ask you one very simple question. Try to think about it. Suppose you are in a mood of depression, anxiety, or you are feeling some kind of, you are a little disturbed because of some unknown reason maybe. So what is it? What do you do in order to change your mood? What do you do when you are disturbed, when you are not feeling good, when you have, you have a negative feeling? What do you do at that time? Try to recall the list of things that you actually do to brighten up your mood, right? So how is this related to the poem? Let's see. Let's delve into this beautiful poem, Dust of Snow. So first of all, let us look at the title, Dust of Snow. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it interesting? In this scorching heat, how many of us want to delve into this poem which is talking about snow and get the feel of snow all around us? Many of us, right? So let us move into the poem. As you see that this is talking about dust of snow. Dust of snow means the particles of snow. Quite amazing, right? So snow, you can see it's an element of nature. How many of you are over here nature lovers? How many of you spend your time in the close proximity with nature? What is it that, pulls you towards nature? Do you love nature? Are you a nature lover? These are certain questions that you can answer. Please try to answer yourself. And of course, you can comment in the comment section. I would really appreciate and love to read your posts in the comments. So let's move on to the poem. Before moving on to that, let me thank all of you because for your love and support. It is all because of your sharing of love. We have now become a family of 5 lakh young minds. So thank you everyone. Thank you so much, my lovely kids. So as you can see from the background, this beautiful nature, like snow-filled atmosphere. We all love to go to such a place, right? In this, like here, then the temperature is very high. So I am really wanting to badly go to such a place, which is, seeing snowfall, that I'm really lured to such a place, lured to go to such a place. Aren't you? Okay, so before again going, I'm going to read you, because this is a very short poem of almost like 8 lines, very short poem. So I'm going to read the poem to you and then I'm going to analyze stanza wise. So don't worry, I'm going to make all your doubts clear. But yes, before going into the reading of the poem, this is a beautiful quote by John Milton, which I'm going to share with you and try to analyze, because this has a very deep meaning that you need to know. And it is, yes, I found it quite relatable to the poem as well, right? So what does this quote say? The mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Very beautiful line by John Milton. Very, very beautiful. What is it saying? That everything is in the mind itself. If we think we can do it, we can do it. If we think we cannot, we won't be able to. So it is a place, if we think positive, if we are optimistic, we will lead a life of optimism. Everything positive we will be surrounded by an aura of positivity. But if we are negative, if we have a negative attitude, again we will be surrounded by negativity all around. So mind is a place which makes a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Even if we are in a hell-like situation, if we think positive, we will create a heaven. And even if we are in a heaven-like situation, we have everything with us, but still our thinking is negative, our thinking is pessimistic, then we will never be happy, even if we are surrounded with all kinds of positivity. This quote is very, very, very applicable to all of our lives right now, all of our lives. So try to analyze and try to, apply this in your everyday life, day-to-day life situation. Do not think negative. Always be optimistic in life. Definitely, you will be, you will be able to reach your the heights of success with such kind of optimistic and positive outlook. So moving on to the poem, this is very much related to the poem. And how is it related? I'll come back to the quote again after we analyze the poem. So Robert Frost, he was an American poet. So we have already done one session on The Road Not Taken. So The Road Not Taken was also written by Robert Frost. So we have done over there as well. We have known this poet. So we are quite acquainted with this poet Robert Frost, right? So he is an American poet. He was an American poet, and he is known for his realistic depiction of rural life and his command over American colloquial speech. And he wrote in the settings from rural life in New England in the early 20th century. So he was an early 20th century poet, and he used them to examine complex social and philosophical themes. So over here in this poem also, he actually talks about a philosophical theme. So he introduces a philosophical theme. Though this poem is just a short poem of 8 lines only, but it has, so it do not get betrayed by the length of the poem. The length does not mean that this is very, this does not have depth. It has a great depth. If you delve into the poem, you will understand that it has multiple layers, it has great depth. So he is the only poet to receive 4 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry. And one more point before moving on is that he is a romantic poet. And what is a romantic poet? I'm going to explain you just after a tiny break. And this break is for you guys. You can study safely in your home, sitting at your home. Just download the Vedantu app. You have access to free live classes, right, from grades 1 to 12. Just check this link out, right? To know more, just check this link out. So even in this pandemic, situation, you are not going to lose anything. We are there. We are committed to help you out in this, and study safely from your homes. Study safely with Vedantu. Keep learning with Vedantu. Now let us have an introduction to the poem. So the poem itself, like the background seems quite alluring. See the drops, you can see these are the particles of snow, right, in the tree, okay, and the snow is melting and the water drops are falling. So I really want to I want to make this poem transport me to that place, right? So what is this poem all about? First of all, let me tell you that, yes, as I told you that Robert Frost was a romantic poet. And what is a romantic poet? A romantic poet, basically, he belonged to the period of Romanticism in English literature, which came after the Augustan period, right? Restoration, Augustan period. After that came Romantic period, and that was a revolution, and that meant revival of nature. So basically, these poems, these poets wrote about nature. The 4 main romantics are Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, Byron. These are the 4, basic pillars of romanticism. You have a similar, like Hindi and English literature. History of English and Hindi literature almost goes parallelly, because here you have romanticism, there also you have romanticism in Hindi literature as well, right? So so these people, they were, what are the features? They wrote about nature. Their themes were philosophical. They were more subjective as opposed to the objectivity of the previous period, that was the Augustan period. And they wrote in a very simple language, right? very simple language because they wanted to reach the mass. If they wrote, they thought that if we write in highly stylized language like the previous the poets and the authors of the previous period, that is Augustan period, actually wrote in a very highly stylized artificial kind of a language which was only meant for the high class elitist society. But these romantics, they actually wanted to reach out the mass, and now the focus shifted from the high class people to a common people like a poor beggar, right? Or just simple themes. So the main focus now became the common people and not the high class people, right? And yes, they worshipped nature, or they were nature lovers, right? And their approach to poetry, or their approach was absolutely subjective. So that therefore they used very simple language, and you can see from the language of this poem as well how simple the language is. We have no difficulty in understanding any of the words particularly. So this is for us, this is for the common people, and let's enjoy the poem. Now you can see that Dust of Snow is a simple poem of 8 lines in 2 stanzas, going by the trend of romanticism, very simple, open to mass. They wanted to reach out to mass. Each of the 2 stanzas in the poem follows the same simple rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B. Very, very simple is, let me check once, let me see once. You can see the way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. So you can see over here, simple rhyme scheme of A, B, A, B. Okay. And Dust of Snow is very simple in structure. As I told you, don't get, betrayed by the simple structure. It has very poignant content. That is, it is very deep. If you go into the poem, you'll find that it's very deep in content and theme, right? So now let me read out the poem to you. Please enjoy the reading of the poem along with me and try to keep the poem in front of you so that you can associate well, you can relate well, and you can have a comprehensive understanding of the poem, right? So Dust of Snow by Robert Frost. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rue. So you can see that the whole poem is just one sentence without any punctuation. The punctuation comes at the end of the poem, and there is a specific technique which is termed, and that is called, we will see, right, when we look at the poetic devices. Okay. So when there is no punctuation and just a punctuation at the end of the entire poem, we have a specific term for that. Let us read about that term, and let us read about the other poetic devices, but that we will find out at the end of the poem. First, let us see stanza-wise explanation. So let us move to the first stanza. As you can see in the background, that a crow is sitting on a branch of a tree, and the man here, let us imagine that this is the narrator. He is standing, and because of the movement of the crow who is sitting on the branch, the snow, this tree is covered with snow, and because of the crow's movement, what is happening is the snow falling on the man's body, right? So see, the way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. So we can see this is the hemlock tree, this is the crow, this is the poet standing under the hemlock tree. The crow sitting on the branch is shaking the branch of the tree, and therefore what is happening? The snow is falling on the man or on the poet, right? So the poem begins out of nowhere. You can see there is no background detail given. It's just out of nowhere. The poet is just beginning the poem, right? The poet gives us no details about what happened that day or what he was doing in the snow. So we have no details about anything, no background details. Why he was standing under the tree, we don't know. What was he doing in the snow, we don't know. We understand from the first stanza that the poet was standing under a hemlock tree. There was a crow on one of the branches of the tree, as you can see. When the crow made some move, so the snow went down on the poet. That is what the poem says in the first stanza, right? Now let us move on to the second stanza. I hope you have understood. If you want me to speak in Hindi also, I can do that. एक कौवा आया, ब्रांच पे बैठा, बिकॉज ऑफ द मूवमेंट, उसके मूवमेंट के वजह से क्या हुआ, द स्नो, द हेमलॉक ट्री में जो स्नो था, दैट वो स्नो जो है उसके ब्रांच के शेक करने के वजह से पोएट के ऊपर उसका पार्टिकल्स जो है वो गिरा. दैट इज द फर्स्ट स्टैंजा ऑल अबाउट. ओके, एंड द नेक्स्ट स्टैंजा, लेट अस सी द नेक्स्ट स्टैंजा. Has given my heart. The next stanza talks about the effect of that falling of snow on the poet's body. उस snow, वो जो snow गिरा because of the movement of the crow, उसका poet के ऊपर क्या effect हुआ, right? That is what the second stanza is talking about. In the second stanza, the poet says that this small incident made his mood light up. So this was a very small incident, maybe just an insignificant part of our life which we do not even care to think about, right? But even in this small incident was able to actually make his mood light. Through the words of the poet, we can understand that the poet was having a bad day, and the way the crow shook the snow to the poet's body has made his day. So what is he saying over here is, let me read out. Has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. So he had rued, meaning he had regretted. Rued means to regret. So some part of the day he was not feeling good. He was, feeling some kind of anxiety. He was disturbed by some unknown reason which we do not know why. But he says that this occurrence of the crow shaking up the branch of a tree, leading the snow to fall on my body, that actually changed my mood. That actually saved the rest of the day, which I had actually, a part of the day that I had, regretted. This occurrence actually saved me from that. That means I was transformed from negative feeling to positive feeling. Now, very notable are the symbols used in the poem. In the beginning of the poem, you can see that the poet is talking about what? The poet is talking about a crow and a hemlock tree, right? Now, hemlock tree is what? It is a poisonous plant. Hemlock tree is a poisonous tree which is filled with flowers. And so why is he taking up these symbols? Why is he taking up such a negative symbol of, hemlock tree, so as to, that is a poisonous tree. So why is he talking about a poisonous tree? And secondly, crow. Crow is usually not taken up in poetry. Usually. We have hardly read about any poem talking about a crow. बहुत कम पढ़ते हैं. What we read about is nightingale, about beautiful birds like nightingale, peacock, skylark. Keats has written about nightingale. Shelley has written about skylark. These are the prominent romantic poets who have written about beautiful birds like skylark or, nightingale. Who has written about crow? We hardly find any poet writing poem about, crow. So that is very, very important. So why has he taken these symbols, these nature symbols of crow and, hemlock tree, which is a poisonous tree? Crow is also associated with bad luck or ill omen. If crow comes near our house and starts shouting, we do not like the sound of the crow. We think that something ill is going to happen, right? That is a part of the superstitious belief that the people have. Crow brings bad luck. If a crow comes and shouts at our house, that means something bad or something unfortunate is going to happen. That is what it is, right? So in the setting of the poem is, he begins with a very gloomy kind of atmosphere, taking up imagery, taking up symbols like trees, hemlock tree and crow, which brings bad luck, right? So why is he doing that? He is doing that to make us understand about his negative atmosphere, negative feeling, all kinds of negativity he is bringing up in the first stanza. But in the second stanza, what he is doing is, he is absolutely transforming these negative images into positive, thereby showing that nothing is actually negative. It is in our mind. As I told you about the quote of Milton, mind is a place that can make a hell out of heaven and heaven out of hell. So everything is in our mind. Even these so-called negative images or these so-called negative elements of nature can bring about positive changes in us. So there is nothing negative. All these superstitious belief of having a crow bringing ill luck, that is all in our mind. There is actually nothing like that. That is what the poet is trying to tell you when he says, actually this is the crow, which is the so-called negative element or negative symbol that is causing a positive change in my mood, making me happy, right? So therefore, how can we term this crow as something negative? So what he is doing is bringing the negative symbols, negative, nature elements, turning them into something positive. So that reveals the optimistic nature of the poem and the poet as well. Now let us move on to the poetic devices used in the poem. The poem employed ABAB stanza, right, like rhyme scheme, and this is the term which I was telling you when I began with the poem, that there is no punctuation, but at the end of the poem there is just one full stop. So that is called enjambment, the continuation of a sentence without a pause beyond the end of a line, couplet or stanza. That means when your sentence is continued and it's just without any punctuation mark and its end stopped only at the last of the last line. That is the enjambment. Both the two stanzas of the poem is a single sentence in 4 lines without any punctuation. So that is an enjambment. Next is assonance or vowel rhyme. Now what is assonance? As you know, alliteration talks about the repetition of the same consonant sound at the beginning of the words that are in close proximity to each other. Similarly, assonance talks about the repetition of vowel sound across a line of words. So these vowel sound can even be, at the beginning or at the middle or in the middle or at the end, doesn't matter. For example, here, shook down on me. The repetition of the vowel sound O, shook down on. O is repeated. The vowel sound O is repeated. So such a rhyme scheme is called, such a figure of speech is called assonance. Next is alliteration, which I already talked about, repetition of the consonant sound in close proximity. Has given my heart. So her, repetition of the her sound, right? So that is alliteration. So now let us again try to analyze the entire poem. Creation of gloomy mood in the beginning, which I already told you, the poem begins with a very gloomy atmosphere by having the crow and hemlock tree, which is a poisonous tree, right? So why does he take that? We all have already come to the conclusion that why does he do that, right? Use of nature symbols. Yes, he has used nature symbols like the crow, hemlock tree, then the snow, right? Crow and hemlock tree are negative symbols to create the gloomy atmosphere. So he has began the poem, he has started the poem with negative symbols like crow and gloomy atmosphere, which actually shows the mood of the poem, which is a depressive kind of a mood, gloomy mood of the poem. So it reveals that gloomy mood in the poet, right? Now, snow is a symbol of happiness or joy. So it is actually the snow which is causing the poet to be happy. But what brings about that snow? It is the action of the crow moving or shaking the branches. So therefore, negativity becomes positive. And what is causing that positivity? The action of the crow, which is usually considered as a negative symbol. Very, very, very important. Now, what does the poem try to give us? What message does the poem try to give us? It tries to make us understand that every bad situation has something positive in it. So there is nothing bad, as I told you, as I relate, spoke about the quote of Milton, right? Spoke about the quote of Milton, where he says about man making in his mind a heaven out of hell, a hell out of heaven. So there is no place as such called a hell or a heaven. Everything exists in our mind, right? So even in a bad situation, when we are in depression, what do? We can, of course, we can be positive in our life. We need to be very optimistic. We will think that even if something is, like we think that this is negative, nothing is negative. There is some kind of positivity in every negative situation as well. We have to just find out that positive element in our life. So instead of being depressive, we should find out the positivity in it. So another message is that even in an insignificant incident like a crow shaking a branch of a tree can actually cause happiness in you. Various other examples, for example, when you see a baby smile, all your sorrows, anxiety goes away, fades away. You enjoy the smile of a baby who is again very close to nature, very close to divinity. So that it has that divine aura in him or her, so as to change your mood. So it becomes your mood changer. It brightens up your mood, right? You see a flower blooming, you find happiness. That is the power of nature. You see a cat or any other pet animal that you have in your home, you play with them, you find happiness. All your feelings of depression, anxiety goes away for a moment. So that is the power of nature. They are also the elements of nature. So that is the, great power of nature. It makes you happy. When you, whenever you feel like having a monotonous situation, what you do? You go for a vacation, right? And where is the place that you choose for, to go for a vacation? Generally, we choose hill stations. Why do we choose hill stations? Because there we can, witness beautiful scenic images, scenic beauty of nature. So why? Because we love nature. We should spend more and more time in close proximity to nature. When you feel a little, depression or anxiety, what you do? Enjoy the rainfall, right? If rain falls, what we do? Go out and enjoy, right? Then suppose when there is hailstorm or snowfall, what do? We go and collect the small particles, right, of snow, because we enjoy that. So, and that really gives us pleasure, gives us joy, makes us feel overjoyed. Similarly, the poet was also overjoyed when that snow particles fell on his body. So that is very, very, very important. So you can also think that, you can imagine, very well imagine, that instead of the poet, you are standing on under the branch of a tree and suddenly particles of snow falling on your body. How would you feel? That will give you pleasure, right? So that is the message of the poem, that even an insignificant incident in your life can make you feel very happy. You just need to find out the happiness, the happy element in your life. So that was all from my side. I hope you have enjoyed this beautiful poem by Robert Frost. And of course, as I told you, that as I already asked you, that what do you do when you feel that you are facing a kind of anxiety or tension, any kind of tension, exam tension, pressure? What do you do? How do you remove that pressure? So yes, don't forget to post your comments. I would love to read it. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, then yes, you know what to do, hitting the like button, and yes, share it with your friends as well. Thank you guys. Till then, take care. Bye bye. See you all in the next session.